Finding a profitable niche. Of course, not all areas in selling are created equal. Some do really well, some don't do as well, and it's not any different with Yahoo Answers. Certain things are going to sell better than others. So, of course, you want to take the time before we just jump in there and start selling a product. We want to make sure that we find one that's going to sell well. So, how do we do that? Well, first thing you need to ask yourself is there money in this niche? Something like I mentioned, dog training. Let's break that down for a second. If I have a dog and he's peeing in the house and he's biting my leg, and of course I love him, I want to keep him, but I'm having a hard time training him. Am I going to be willing to spend $30 on a book? Of course I am, because it's a big deal. Let's talk about something that I don't think would be as easy to sell. Let's say that you want to sell ringtones. The problem with ringtones is, of course, that there's a lot out there that are free. So, are people really going to be willing to spend a lot of money on ringtones? Or even if they spend money, it's not going to be a lot of money. So that's just something to think about. With Yahoo Answers, I try to focus on specific problems because, if somebody goes on there, even asks a question about ringtones, where can I find a ringtone? You can tell them, but they're not going to be as likely to buy as somebody that says, help my dog. If I do not get him trained in 2 weeks, my family, we're going to have to get rid of the dog. What can I do? This person is going to be much more desperate, which means that it's going to be an easier sell for you. Is there enough interest in this niche? This is also something to keep in mind. You could find something, very specific that you know a lot about, but if people aren't asking the questions in Yahoo Answers, then you're going to be out of luck. So one thing I would do is I would go on to Yahoo Answers, and we'll talk about that in a little bit on how to search for questions, but if people aren't asking the questions, there's not going to be anybody to answer. So make sure that there's enough interest in the niche. You can gauge that pretty easily. Can this niche be sold to? For example, let's say that you wanted to target something that kids like. Well, the problem with that is if kids are going to be the ones finding and asking these questions, and you're going to be answering kids, they're not going to have the ability to go out and buy this stuff. They're going to have to ask their parents, and then there's that whole breakdown. So you want to look for what can be sold to. Or somebody's looking for free advice on whatever. They're probably not sitting at the computer with their credit card ready to buy because they want to find something out for free. That's one of the things. The internet has a lot of stuff that's free, so you got to keep that in mind. So again, is this a niche where people have money? Poor college students, that are scraping by. They're not going to want to go out and spend $100 on a designer shirt. It really all depends. You need to look at things and think about who's going to have money and who you can sell to. But just one final thing about this, do not be intimidated by the super hot niches. And what this means is, I know that when I first started in internet marketing, credit cards, diet pills, things like that, they're big. They're really big on the internet, and people often tell you stay away from the things that are super hot because there's a lot of competition. Well, the thing is with Yahoo Answers, as long as you're providing good answers to questions, you don't have to be intimidated by not going into the hot niches, because if people are hungry and looking for something, I would encourage you to try it. So don't let that scare you off. Another question that I'm commonly asked is, how do I come up with ideas for niches to be able to evaluate them? And the thing is, niches are all around you. If you go into a supermarket and look at magazines on the shelf, or a bookstore's even better, if there's a magazine created specifically for that niche, then you know what, there's a market. Pick it up and take a look at what's being advertised in the magazine. Of course, there's magazines provided for dog owners and cat owners, and people that like to knit, and people that want to lose weight, and people that like video games. Just about anything. So again, a niche really can be, so many different things. The only thing with Yahoo Answers again is that if you pick something that's a bit too narrow, then you're not going to find as big an audience. If you pick something like credit cards, obviously there's going to be a lot of people asking questions about, what's the best credit card to get, what's a good strategy to avoid getting into debt, things like that. Whereas if you pick something that's super, super specific, there might not be as many questions. So keep that in mind. So again, one thing I would encourage you to do is write down a bunch of different ideas and then go out and see if they're going to work. And we'll talk about in the next video how to, once you have some ideas, how to look for products to sell.